Today on Muddy Beards 4x4, we're going to be turning this stock Grand Cherokee into this off-road and overland ready Grand Cherokee. Hello everyone and welcome to Muddy Beards 4x4. I am Robbie and today we're going to be working on my new project. This 2001 Jeep Grand Cherokee WJ that I picked up a couple of months ago for dirt cheap, and I was able to fix it up and get it running again. And today I want to transform this stock Grand Cherokee into an off-road ready family overlanding rig by installing a 4-inch suspension lift kit from Iron Rock Off-Road. So this is a complete Rocklink long arm 4-inch suspension kit from Iron Rock Off-Road, and this has to be one of the most, if not the most complete kits you can find on the market. It literally includes everything you are going to need to lift your rig and pretty much have all brand new suspension underneath the vehicle. Now in the front, this thing comes with this 100% bolt-on 3-piece cross member, which will allow us to install our new control arms, all made of DOM, tons of adjustability, and all brand new flex joints. Of course, we have our coil springs. It does come with a new track bar. This thing's double adjustable and it's pretty beefy. And I even opted to go with the JKS quick disconnects for the sway bar. And of course, you got all your mounting hardware, bushings, all sorts of things. I also decided to upgrade the shocks. I went with their middle of the road. These are the Deutsch shocks, which should hopefully ride and perform a little bit better off-road. And then for the rear, I upgraded to the Plus package. Now the Plus package gets you the adjustable short arms, again made out of DOM with flex joints, and it comes with this brand new upper A-arm, which is awesome. So again, tons of stuff. I think this was 7 boxes full of parts. So we got a lot to do, and I can't wait to get started. Well, all right, we should now be able to move on to the installation of our rear suspension. So I upgraded to the Plus package specifically so I could get these adjustable lower control arms. Now, the reason why I wanted these is because these are gonna help me recenter the wheel in the wheel well. What tends to happen when you lift a vehicle with non-adjustable arms is it will actually suck the axle in closer to the front of the wheel well. With these, I should be able to adjust that axle out and kind of recenter some things. So what I'm going to do just as a starting point, and if I need to make further adjustments, I can. But if you notice this factory lower control arm, if I just measure it from bolt hole to bolt hole, it's about 17 3/4 inches. So what I'm going to do is set these things just 1 inch longer as a starting point. And so this will be 18 3/4 inch. And then for the A arm, I'm going to do the same thing. If I'm measuring from the bolt hole to the center of the ball joint here on the A arm, it's about 20 inches. And so from the center of the grease fitting to this, I'm just going to set that out to about 21 inches. Now, it may require a little bit of adjustability or adjustment after I get this thing back on the ground, but that's where we're going to start. And the rest of this is pretty much just the opposite of the disassembly. So we'll put our new coil springs in. You can see the height difference here. This bolts to the axle so I can bolt up the A arm. We'll get our new shocks on, and we should be able to start buttoning up this rear end. Well, check it out, everyone. We just about got this rear suspension all buttoned up, and it's starting to look awesome. I managed to get these upgraded Deutsch Tech shocks installed using the factory hardware, and I even went ahead and put on some new brakes because the brakes were just in terrible shape, and I couldn't put this thing back together with the brakes looking like that. And then I got it lowered back down onto the factory wheels and tires for now. Now, I do have a surprise for at the very end of the video that I don't want to spoil, but it's going to not only make this thing look awesome, it's also going to complement the lift and truly make this thing the off-road and overlanding vehicle that I want. But in the meantime, this is the reason why I went and I upgraded to the adjustable control arms, because with that adjustability, I was able to recenter the whole axle into the middle of the wheel well, and I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. And I do still have some adjustment on those lower control arms. And even though they are a short arm, that adjustability is awesome for being able to fine tune how I want this thing to sit. So now that I got got everything looking like I want to. All I got to do is just retorque everything. I got to double check to see that my pinion angle is correct, and then I should be able to move on to the front, which is a little bit more involved. With the factory cross member now removed, we can go ahead and install our new 3-piece cross member. And we're going to do that by starting with the outers. And all I'm going to do is actually test fit this thing up into place. And then reusing the factory bolts for now, I'm just going to bolt this thing into place in all the factory mounting positions. And then those front 2 bolts, I'm going to mark those out. And then with a 7/16 drill bit, we're going to go ahead and drill into the unibody channel and then use this provided piece here to fish up into the uniframe channel, and it should act to be able to capture those nuts. And so this thing will be fully bolted into place. Now, you could exercise the option to weld this. I'm not going to. I'm pretty happy with the way this is designed, and that'll be 6 total bolts holding in this outer alone. And my uniform channel's in pretty good shape, and so are all the mounting locations, all the threads and everything. So I'm pretty satisfied with the way that is. So we're gonna get this thing bolted up into place, get the center section then put in, and we can go ahead and start working on the front suspension. Well, check it out, everybody. It is the next day, and last night I managed to get that cross member bolted up and drop the transmission down into place into its new home. Then I went ahead and removed all of the front suspension components and have the axle kind of drooped out here, because that's how I like it in order to access this next part that we need to do. And that is probably the worst part of this whole process, which is removing this factory lower control arm mount. So our new long arms will contact this, and so we have to get rid of it. And I'm probably gonna use a combination plasma cutter, but certainly you could just use a cutoff wheel, you know, and a grinder. And I'm just gonna kind of cut, you know, the ears off and try to clean it up as much as possible, and get, you know, just to make it look good, and then spray it with some paint. It is sort of double wrapped sheet metal here. It's more of a pain than it looks like to get it nice and neat, but we just got to cut it off. Make sure that you be careful about this brake line back behind this second piece, but other than that, it's fairly straightforward. Just takes a little bit of time. So that turned out to not be quite as big a deal as I thought it was going to be. It still is not fun, but I just used my Yes Welder Cut 65 plasma cutter, and I was able to cut it off into like 3 pieces, and then just came back with my angle grinder and a flap disc and smoothed it all out, and that's going to work out just fine. Now I did go ahead and start off camera putting together this front suspension. I started off with this brake spacer, brake line spacer. Again, this kit is so complete. They think of everything. It's nice to include that. That's pretty self-explanatory. Just put the spacer in and it allows you to get your full flex without stretching out those brake lines. And then using a hand tap, I was able to thread the upper coil spring bucket here and then tap it for a bolt so that I can bolt in these coil spring retainers so that when I'm all flexed out, my coil spring doesn't fall out. So now that means we get to go move to the fun part, which is the control arms. So I have the new long arms here, and you can see the size difference between the factory control arm and these new ones, and it's significantly longer, which is going to make this thing ride so much better but also perform better off road. So according to Iron Rock, I believe these are supposed to be 36.5 inches from eye hole to eye hole, just bolt center to bolt center. I'm going to start off with them about 1 inch longer. That just, again, I like that starting point. I like to push things out. So just a quick digression, everyone. That 1 inch forward ended up not working out for me. When I got this thing down on its own weight, it was so far forward that the spring was actually making contact with the sway bar, and it was at a pretty good angle. So I decided to bring it back in just a little bit, about 1/2 inch. And so now I'm about 37 inches from bolt center to bolt center on that lower control arm, and I like the way this looks. It's clearing, it looks pretty centered, but it just goes to show you that it's all, you know, trial and error, and sometimes you got to make adjustments to make it work for your rig. But I'm sure, do not tighten these things up completely, because I'm sure when we get this thing on the ground, we're going to have to make some adjustments. So the instructions say to start with the upper control arm, so we're going to go ahead and do that first. And it might take a little finagling. You always have to, you know, move the axle a little bit to get everything to line up, but we'll get the lower control arms in, the springs put on, track bar, all that stuff, and this thing should start looking like an off-road Jeep here. Check it out, everyone. This thing turned out just amazing. Talk about a true transformation. It is incredible what a lift kit and a good looking set of off-road wheels and tires will do for the look of a vehicle. I've always loved the look of a Grand Cherokee WJ, the styling. It's one of my favorite off-road vehicle platforms, but this combination of the Iron Rock off-road lift kit and this wheel and tire package just makes this thing look absolutely sick. And I cannot wait to get this thing out on an adventure, off-road, overlanding with my friends and family. Now, speaking of off-road wheels and tires, I said I had a surprise for at the end of the video, so let's check out what combination wheel and tire I put on this WJ. Now, these are a 285/70 R17, so they measure out to a 33-inch tire, and they are the Ironman all-country mud terrains. Now, I know I'm going to get a ton of questions about this tire, and yes, I picked them up because they are extremely affordable, but you know what? I can't wait to try them out. They have an extremely aggressive lug pattern. They have super thick sidewalls, and there are tons of positive reviews on these tires online, so I certainly can't wait to try them out, and I can assure you that after I put these things through their paces, try them out in a few different types of terrain, I will be doing a long-term review. Now, the wheels are a 17 by 8.5 bronze spoked wheel from Kansei wheels. Now, you've probably heard of this company, but I've always more associated them with, you know, the import tuner world, or like drifting motorsports, but they do offer a few off-road tires now, or wheels I should say, and this is exactly the look I was looking for. These look amazing. They're a lightweight, durable wheel, and they're also very affordable. I think these were only like 180 bucks a piece. And now that I have it on the ground, this thing clearly is going to need a little bit of trimming. This 4-inch lift is not perfectly clear those 33-inch tire. In the front, it rubs on that front bumper, so hopefully all I'm gonna do is some trimming on that front bumper. And the rear also appears to be rubbing on the bumper when you go to flex it out, so I will have a little bit of trimming to do on this vehicle. Now, as far as finishing up the lift, I did have to do quite a few final adjustments and measurements once I got this thing lowered down onto the ground. And while I think I got this thing squared away, it's still probably a good idea to go get yourself a professional alignment. My biggest trouble was getting that front axle centered, so getting that track bar straightened out. So what I like to do is find a common measurement on both sides of the vehicle. And in this case, that was the upper coil tower, and then just extending a measurement across the coil tower to the edge of the tire. Now, as long as both of those sides, or both of those measurements are the same, you're probably pretty close to square, or at least good enough in order to get it down and get an alignment. But other than that, it was just a bunch of making sure all the bolts were tight and torqued down to spec. And there's really nothing left to do but get this thing out on the road, or should I say out on a trail. So if you like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you like WJs and you're not subscribed to the channel already, make sure you click subscribe. Leave a comment down below, and if you want to check us out on social media, we are at Muddy Beards 4x4. So until next time, we'll see you on the trail.